Thanks so much for tuning in to the Sustainable Brown Girl YouTube channel. This show exists to provide representation for women of color within the environmental space, to share their stories, and to inspire all to be more eco-friendly every day. I'm your host, Ariel Green. This is where you can see all of the full video podcast episodes. So be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. Also, go follow us on Instagram at Sustainable Brown Girl. Enjoy! Today's featured Sustainable Brown Girl is Taylor. She's the creator of Sweet Honey Thrift, a secondhand online boutique. Through reselling her thrifted finds, Taylor is helping others quit fast fashion and is diverting textile waste from being dumped on other countries. Thank you so much for joining us today, Taylor.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yay.
Yay.
So tell us, how did your sustainable journey begin?
Well, I was thinking a lot about this question, and I think, like a lot of us, my sustainable journey started when I was just a really young girl. I came from a lower middle class family, and my dad definitely came from a background that was like very low income. And I think there's a lot of like intersections between, like frugality and sustainability. So like in my house growing up, it was, my dad was always like really, really strict about taking short showers and turning off the lights. And like we had, I don't know, you'd like cut up t-shirts for rags, and we always like saved all of our Tupperware and had a bunch of things in containers that weren't of the actual thing that the container said, you know what I mean? So I think that sort of just like laid my foundation and just like sort of like drilled those things into me, even though at the time I didn't like see or think of them as sustainability,
Exactly.
Yeah, but they are. So having that just sort of like, it was like a foundation for me. And then as I got older, I've always just been a really sort of like sensitive and emotional and passionate person. So like the more that I learned about, the realities of just like the world, not even just sustainability or in the environment, but just everything, I got sort of jaded. And I definitely went through a phase in high school where I was just like sort of angsty but like wanting to help. And I remember there was this distinct time period where I was like, how am I going to choose one thing to like focus on and help when like there's all these issues that I care about. Like I stopped eating meat, and I started to, try to just consume less, produce less waste and stuff. Like that started all in high school. And then, things just kind of kept snowballing from there. But I would say all of that was not as intentional as my sort of like sustainability journey has been since I started the shop.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have started from those like humble beginnings, like you said, when we're growing up and our families are like reuse all this and, take shorter showers. Most of the time it's not from a place of like caring for the planet. It's more of a place from, like you said, being frugal.
Right.
So so it's interesting to see how, that shifts over time as you learn more about like climate change and, waste and all that. So
yeah, for sure. Like I remember I used to be so frustrated when I was younger because my house was so dark because we'd never put on lights. Like my dad just like hated having on the lights, and it would be like only if there was a person in the room could the light be on. And even then still, like, maybe it's just a lamp in the corner, like not the overhead light. And I would always just think, it's so dark in here. Like we would all be having dinner in the dining room, and then like I'd go to the bathroom or something, and then I'd come back out, and like my family had gone upstairs and all the lights are off. I'm like, I'm still so I was annoyed at that back then. And then more recently I'm like, that's cool. Thanks, Dad.
Yes. Right. Exactly. So then what led you to start Sweet Honey Thrift?
Well, I think it was really you know, I think starting the shop was very much one of those like fateful moments where just like a lot of moving parts come together and,
Yeah.
you know, kind of like that annoying, like, oh, just like when you know, or just, it's like that kind of light bulb moment. But I had read once this article, and this was like a
Hmm.
few years ago, and I can't remember the article name or who wrote it, but it was saying how like if you want to be happier and find more happiness and authenticity in your life, then one thing you can do is go back to things that you enjoyed as a child, that you
Hmm.
enjoyed doing it when you were younger, because at that point, like you were uninhibited and just sort of like going off truly whatever it was that you wanted to do. And when I was younger, I was obsessed with clothes, and I was like obsessed with shopping, and I loved just like putting together outfits, and I would, like think about my outfit for school the next day before, and I just like was all into playing dress up from like a very young age.
Yeah.
So that sort of that article really like changed my behaviors as a person, not just for the clothes, but like I started thinking about all the sorts of things that I like to do as a kid. Like I used to always love being outdoors. So like after I read that, I started making it more of a priority to like get outdoors every day and, things like that. So that was sort of in the back of my mind. I'm just like, okay, I really like clothing. Clearly I liked it when I was a kid. And maybe if I can incorporate clothes into my life now, I might be more happy, because I had previously always felt really not fulfilled by work.
Hmm.
I was working in education, doing like college counseling.
Hmm.
It was just not, it never made me feel fulfilled. And I
Yeah.
was really like always seeking that fulfillment. So that was one factor that played into me starting the shop. And then I lived abroad for a few years. So I was living like I moved to Southeast Asia, and I was in Thailand, and then I moved to China, Shenzhen, China.
Hmm.
In China for 4 years, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. And that also played a big role in my sustainability journey, because it's just sort of a really like up close and personal, look at, I guess, consumerism and just like how much we're consuming and how it's being produced. So anyway, when I was in China, I started working for this massive fast fashion retailer. They're called Zappos.
Hmm.
Yeah, have you heard of them?
Oh yeah, I've bought things from them before.
Yeah, for sure. They're like,
Yeah.
I think, being comparable. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
Um, and so yeah, before I was always like, I had always gone thrifting when I lived in America, but that was not, to be sustainable. That was because I didn't have a lot of money and I wanted cool and unique clothes.
Yeah.
And so, but I was also just like a bargain hunter. Like I loved like, so I was a big fast fashion consumer. Like Forever 21 was my favorite place ever, especially when they
Yeah.
were like having a sale, and I did a lot of like shopping. So I started working and doing some modeling and like live stream hosting for Zappos. So they would do like live stream sales, and I was hosting
Hmm.
for them. So I'd go live on their Instagram, which was like really huge platform. I think they had like 5
Yeah.
million followers at the time. Now they probably have much more. And yeah, I would try on the clothes and like talk about them, and then I would, try and sell them at these crazy discounts. And I also got to purchase the clothes at a really, really like basically probably at like the factory rate that they were paying.
Yeah.
So I was
Wow.
stoked about that as someone at that time who just like I just loved fast fashion, and I had no idea about like this sort of dark underbelly of fast fashion. I didn't even know it was
Hmm.
fast fashion. To me, that was just fashion, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and so, on top of, so I worked for them for like about a year. Um, and on top of, like, they just treated me really, really poorly as an employee, like
Hmm.
shockingly so. And that's like a whole other story for a whole nother day.
Yeah.
So that was like compounded with the fact that I was now able to get all of these clothes like cheaper than I've ever been able to before, and like just so rapidly. So I would literally like be doing the lives, and I would after the live just be like, okay, I want this one, this one, this one, this one, and like pay $10, and I would get all these clothes.
Yeah.
And but I started to realize like some of these clothes, I'm literally trying them on and they're falling apart on my
Ooh.
body while I'm like
Wow.
alive. So like the strap's coming off this dress and I'm still having to
No.
be like, selling it like it's the best thing ever. Or,
Wow.
I'm seeing when I was doing the live, they had like a PowerPoint with like the stuff about the clothes that I was selling and like a picture of the item. And I would look at the picture of the item and I'm like, that doesn't look like this. That looks like a
Mm-hmm.
picture from somebody's Instagram or something, which it was, right? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
this is not. And I'm like, is that what you're using to sell this garment on your website? And they're
Yeah.
like, yeah. And I'm like, that is not the same thing as this. And so I don't know. It was just sort of like all of these, yeah, like the truth of it all started to
Mm-hmm.
show. And also like when I was able to like get all of these clothes and I was using clothing as like a quick dopamine rush
Yeah.
basically.
Right.
And that starts to wear off when it's just coming like beyond, like it's just so easy and so cheap and so like so abundant that it sort
Mm-hmm.
of like lost its allure to me. And so I was like, yeah, a lot of like drama ensued as far as like their treatment of me and the working conditions and stuff. And so that just sort of like put me off from fast
Yeah.
fashion. And then I moved back to America and I had like I wasn't working and I had some money from my previous job and I had that whole experience and I was finally able to go thrifting again. So I'm like in the thrift stores, but I'm finding all this amazing stuff, but I'm like, I don't want or need this all for myself. But
Yeah.
if I don't pick it out, what might happen to it? Maybe, I don't know, someone might find it, but they might not. And then
Mm-hmm.
at that point, I didn't even really know about, landfills or clothing being shipped overseas. But I was just like, I, want to, I don't want these clothes to go to waste. That was basically my thought. And my friend had told me
Yeah.
about Depop, like a few weeks before. And so, yeah, just all sort of like in that moment, I was like in the dressing room and I had all the clothes and I was like, what am I going to do about this? And it was really just like that kind of like light bulb moment where I was like, you know what? I'm going to sell these online.
Right.
But yeah, it started
Right.
as like a really, it was just sort of like a spur of the moment, like, light bulb idea. And then after that, I got a lot more like intentional about it and started to take it really seriously.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine what it was like working for Zaffle. Like, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it was
That
interesting.
experience.
I'm happy that I had the experience because it showed
Yeah.
me a lot and like a lot of things that I probably just would have otherwise not known. And now I like understand how, other people must feel, like from the outside not knowing that sort of like darker side to it. So now I try and like, spread the word.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's so important. Like, since you've had that inside look, it's helped you to, well, obviously start Sweet Honey Thrift, and then also, help other people to realize like, fast fashion isn't the best, you
Yeah,
know.
totally.
But yeah, I want to talk about like being a reseller, because you kind of mentioned how if you don't buy this one thing, will someone else find it?
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of people. I was just doing a live earlier. I don't know if you caught it, but like, a lot of people say that resellers are like gentrifying thrift shopping.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, what are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about that?
Mm. Yeah, I think, you know, when I first started, I had no idea about sort of the like mentality or, um controversy about resale, like I really didn't um I didn't understand it. And but the more you get into the like community of people who are doing it, the more that you're going to learn about it. And so
Yeah.
yeah, so I definitely as I like moved forward with the shop, I started to, just take a look and, I want to make sure that I'm doing everything with like, ethic, responsibility. And um so yeah, it's it's definitely complicated, but also I think that, you know, what people really need to understand is there is not by any like shadow of a doubt a lack of clothes. You know, there's not
For sure.
a lack of clothing, of like secondhand
Yeah.
clothing. Like there is
Yeah.
abundant clothing. And, you know, so I think sometimes when I'm, you know, out thrift shopping and my cart is like filled to the brim and I have so much stuff, you know, there's people in the shop who are also customers who are looking at me and they're like, I mean, whatever, maybe they're not judging me. I don't want to pass judgment on them saying they're judging me. But, you know,
Uh-huh.
I definitely have sensed maybe some like looks or definitely at the very least curiosity and but
Mm-hmm.
you know, the people who work at the store, they don't have any problem with it because they know they know how much is like
Yeah.
getting back. You know what I mean? Like the people
Right.
who work at the stores, I mean, now in like my community, they're like my good friends and they love me because I spend so much money there. You know what I mean? And they're like
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
they're charities or nonprofits, a lot of them.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, I think I don't really know that why that mindset has come to be, but I would say, you know, one thing I think I realize that people don't like is just like the transparency about, you know, I'm buying this thing at the thrift store and if you go thrifting, you know the prices of things at thrift stores, although those are definitely on the rise. And, you know, I'm selling
Mm-hmm.
it online for more. That is
Mm-hmm.
that's just business, right? Like that's just selling. I mean, it's really standard. That's how most businesses operate, but that it's just like so clear cut for people. You know, like you know that I bought this from the thrift store for like $5 and now I'm selling it for $40 or whatever. Like it makes people feel like they're being ripped off or something when it's like
Yeah, swindled.
exactly when it's like it's really not. It's just because
Yeah.
you're not used to just like really understanding where things that you're buying like are coming from, I guess. And then there's also, you know, the misconception that it's just like easy work, you know, just like
Mm.
like quick, easy way to just like get paid, which is so not.
Wow, I wouldn't think that at all. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so I don't really know where that kind of where the like negative stereotypes are really. I mean, I guess I know where they're coming from, but I just don't know why they're so pervasive. Like
Yeah.
there's just
I think
yeah.
so many people seem to kind of want to have a problem with almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I can see where some people are coming from because, I guess traditionally, people who would shop at thrift stores are people who can't typically afford things that are in a
Right.
normal store, especially before fast fashion really became prevalent.
Yeah.
But now there's so many ways to get more affordable clothing
Yeah.
that, not so many people rely on thrift shopping as much as they did in the past.
Yeah.
And also, like you said, there is an overabundance of clothing.
A
You know,
serious one. Yeah.
yeah, so much so that there's, clothes being sent to, developing countries because we just can't sell them all here. so so I think, what you're doing is definitely helping to divert clothing from landfills and whatnot. And then, it's I also don't see it as being an easy job. Like some
Yeah.
people don't want to go to the thrift store and sift through all the things. Like it can be hard unless you really enjoy shopping and doing that.
Yeah.
Like it can be very time consuming. So, I see the benefit of resellers for sure.
Yeah. And I think it's definitely hard. And this is like from just my personal experience and then just like I'm just surmising about, you know, humanity, but I think it's hard for us to conceptualize like when numbers get like really big, right? Like when we go into
Uh-huh.
like the millions and the billions, it's just like hard for us to conceptualize that in our brain because it's just so massive. And so I think when someone like hears, you know, like the U.S. sends it's like 22 billion um, pounds or tons, I forget,
Mhm.
of textile waste to like landfills every year.
Mhm.
It's like
Mhm.
that it doesn't I feel like the words don't have the impact that like what maybe if you could like see what 22 billion pounds of unwanted like clothing looks like it's a seriously lot. And I think if people could more understand just how much clothing there is, then like just how much there is, like there's really no lack, then I think they would
Yeah.
definitely feel differently, you know? And
Yeah.
then I think
Yeah, definitely.
there's also rules of thumb as far as like you shouldn't go sourcing in low income neighborhoods. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
like that will stop you from potentially, taking away from people who need it more than you, or um, you know, also I was talking to my friend about this the other day, and she was like, also, who's to say that people who are reselling aren't low income themselves?
Hey,
You know,
right, exactly.
like actually,
Yeah.
a lot of us are, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It's not like it's like
Yeah.
some. That's another thing. It's like it's not. Yeah, there's some people who are like who are really killing it and making six figures and have like really I don't know the word, but just scaled up like um in massive ways. But most people, it's really a modest, like it's a modest income, and it's not like
Right.
like not every individual reseller is not like thread up or the real. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, tell me more about how you source your items. Like, do you have a particular style that you're after, or, like how often you're shopping?
Yeah. Um, well, when I started the shop, I sort of, because I've always had um, a unique sense of style, or I've
Hmm.
always been interested in things that are sort of like a little different, or that's why I used to love thrift shopping when I was younger. Just, you know, conversation starting pieces are just like interesting, interesting stuff. And so my first sort of idea was to just buy things that you know I thought were really cool, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is not necessarily like mainstream, but if I like it, someone else is bound to like it. You know what I mean? So I'm
Hmm.
just gonna like get it and sell it, and have this little funky shop, and hopefully find my little tribe of people who vibe with my style. And I still do that for sure. But I also
Hmm.
started to notice as I started to do it more that like those types of pieces are harder sells. So like they would just sit longer in my shop, and it's just like not as sustainable to only
Hmm.
shop that way as far as sourcing. And so then I sell on Depop, where there's a lot of younger shoppers, like a lot of Gen Z, and they have these like micro trends that are changing like honestly by the week, which I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah.
But I did realize that if I want to like stay relevant, and I want to, I mean, this is just my personal thing, but
Hmm.
for me to like really be successful on Depop, I realized that I need to sort of like keep up or just be like abreast of the trends that are popular. I try not to cater into like so much like the like really intense micro trend that like you see this like one style of dress or something, and it's like all over the internet, but it's like in a week it's probably going to be not that exciting. Like, anytime I've like shopped to those like really really short micro trends, um,
Uh-huh.
that's also a failure, because you're going to source it and put it up, and that's going to take you like a few days. The trend could be over by then.
Wow.
Yeah, but I just try and stay up with like more general trends, like seasonal trends, like okay, these things are going to
Yeah.
probably be in this season. And I do that by just scouring the internet, like
Hmm.
a lot of time on Reddit, and like YouTube and stuff like that. But then also I do have like a rule of thumb. Everything I sell is still my style, just maybe
Okay.
not the
Good.
most like out there version of my style, but like I still have my general rule of thumb is that everything that I sell I would wear, or at least
Hmm.
tend to wear. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, and then I source mostly at thrift stores, but more and more now as like my shop is growing, and I guess more people are learning about me, I'm having more people contact me and just to sell their clothes for them, or just like they're
Oh, wow.
getting rid of their clothes, so they're giving me like a huge box full of clothes. And so that I'm sort of heading or considering heading more in that direction too for sourcing. I source on
Hmm.
marketplace, anywhere I can sort of get my hands on things. My mom's closet, my grandma's closet, my auntie's closet.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you're sourcing from the thrift store, I think another part of where people have a problem with reselling is that they say that it's difficult to find larger sizes in thrift stores.
Yeah.
So do you thrift a variety of sizes, or do you stick to like the smaller sizes that are more prevalent?
Well, I like actually, when I started the shop, I knew that size inclusivity in shopping is sort of a like hot issue that is.
Hmm.
I just wanted to make sure that I was like, you know, being respectful and like as inclusive as I could. So I initially wanted to like carry all sizes and especially plus sizes. But then I actually started to follow some plus size sustainable fashion influencers and sustainable influencers, and they actually, recommend you not source if you're not plus size yourself or have a
Yeah.
like solid plus size customer base that exists, then you shouldn't be sourcing plus size items because there are less of them. So I don't
Hmm.
I don't do like plus size, but I definitely do carry like extra small to extra large, but that's just because also I think sizing is kind of it can be sort of arbitrary too
Yeah.
these days when like there's a lot of stuff that I wear that is the tag size large. I mean, there's no like cohesive sizing
Yeah.
guide that we have. So like all brands do it differently, and like some vintage stuff doesn't even have a size, or okay, this might be like a shirt on some people, but it's a dress on me, and either way it's cute. So I just
Hmm.
try and it's more I guess intuitive like style wise, and that just
Right.
I just source things that are cute and that ends up
Yeah.
being pretty size inclusive, but I don't carry like plus sizes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like we kind of talked about this earlier, but what would you say what's the role that resellers play in sustainable fashion?
I think I think resellers are like beyond pivotal to sustainable fashion.
Mm,
The more you get into sustainability, I mean, the more you realize too, like, okay, the most sustainable thing I can really do is not just not buy anything, just not consume
right.
anything, right? But so I have like also grappled with that where I'm like, I'm still like selling things to people, but like whatever. I mean, that's just a personal thing that I have trouble with sometimes. But
Yeah.
I think yeah, there is like I said, tons of textile waste. It's like a massive issue, and there is also like the thrift stores have too much. They like aren't
Hmm.
able to go through all of the inventory that they have quickly enough, and so I think people who are like me, it's like it's really crucial because I don't know if you've ever been to like the bins, the Goodwill bins or anything like that, but
No, no,
those
but
are
I've seen it on YouTube.
yeah. I don't actually source the bins because I've also seen on YouTube and it's like scary. No,
Yeah.
I don't think all the bins are like that, but I think it can be kind of crazy there, like people
Uh-huh.
ripping things out of each other's hands and stuff.
Hmm.
But those are like kind of like I think like a last straw type of place, right? Like all of this stuff that's at the bins was like has been through a thrift store, like has been donated, has been through a thrift store, has been on the floor for a long time, and it still didn't sell. And if it's like, and you go there, you can find like amazing stuff there. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah,
not to
right.
say that like all of the good stuff is just getting swooped up from the thrift stores. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
there's, yeah, I think people really overestimate how much like we are able to like actually consume, like I know some people, and this might be getting a little off topic, but I know some people who like when they're going thrifting, if they see a bunch of other people in the thrift store, they feel like pressed, or they're like, oh no, like everyone's gonna like get my stuff, and it's like no,
Oh,
even
wow.
still there's even still enough, like you will still walk out with tons of stuff even though there's
Hmm.
25 other people shopping, like
Yeah.
and so I think yeah, just resellers are just making, the more resellers there are, the more things are going to go off the racks in the thrift stores or wherever resellers source. People source all sorts of ways
Yeah.
now, but at the end of the day, it's just diverting more textile waste from landfills and diverting, unwanted clothing being sent en masse overseas to
Mm-hmm.
the South and to like a lot of countries in Africa, where
Right.
it's the amount of waste that we're sending there is, it's not just like, it's affecting things like their local commerce in their community. You know what I mean? It's putting,
Yeah.
um, you know,
People who make traditional clothes, it's putting them out of business
yeah, it's putting them out of
sometimes.
business.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also like they're getting to like they're getting like really what was not wanted. You know what I mean? Like it's,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
they don't want it. You know what I mean? If it's like,
Right.
I think that's also a misconception too. Like, I don't know if
Yeah.
I've heard some people's take on that is like, they probably are like really grateful to have all those clothes, or just like, and it's like, no, they also don't want the like really crappy, thing that nobody here wanted. They want
Right.
these.
What are they going to do with a winter coat in Nigeria?
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So
So,
I think
yeah,
that
definitely.
influencers playing a pivotal role in sustainable fashion. Like at the end of the day, it's, for every like sustainable or earth friendly clothing or fashion brand or line, like
Hmm.
no matter what, buying something brand new, even if it's like very sustainably made, is not going to be as sustainable as buying something that already exists. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Uh-huh, for sure. So, would you recommend other people to become resellers? And if so, what tips would you give them?
I definitely would. And I think that's something that I'm like really passionate about, is just not being like gatekeepy as far as like,
Mm-hmm.
because I know a lot of people are, a lot of, like I said, I know a lot of like people who do resale, and they like
Yeah.
get pissed when they see more people in thrift stores, or, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like that at all, because I know how much there is. Like there's enough to go around, and even if we were to consume like all of the secondhand clothes, there would still be a way where we could all be fine. But anyway, that's besides the point.
Yeah.
But I definitely would, and I would say, um, it's a great thing to do, part time, just like on the side. I think if you have that sort of knack for shopping and style, that's uh, it's a great thing to do, and you can start by just like going through your own closet,
Mm.
and clearing out your own stuff. I think that's just like a great place to start. That's how, I started with like a first initial haul of like the thrift store, and then I went through my whole own closet, and like the second, drop that I ever put on my shop was all like my own clothes. So I think that's
Yeah.
a great way to start. And I would say tips, like one of the like biggest things that I've learned, and it's such a simple thing, it's
Hmm.
just that, and this is going to sound so like simple, but it's just that what you're selling needs to be cute.
Yeah, that does sound simple, but I get
It
it.
needs to be cute, it's just,
Yeah.
you have to really ask, like you have to be realistic. Like even if you might like it, or you think that it's really really cool, or it's a really popular brand, like just because it's a brand does not mean that it's desirable, does not mean that it's
Right.
desired by other people. So just like being selective about what you choose. Like don't pick up something just because it's a brand, and don't pick up something like, it'll become really natural to you after you do it for a while, but just like you really stop and ask yourself, like, is someone going to want this? I mean, or
Hmm.
would multiple people want this? Not just one someone, because like the odds of finding that one someone is going to want that like kind of weird or like different thing
Yeah.
is slim. I still sell, like I do sell, I really like unique vintage pieces and sort of more out there styles,
Hmm.
but like I think my bread and butter is sort of, it's a mix between selling those things and then also like selling things that are just, like more catered towards the mainstream. Um,
Right.
so yeah, just make sure that what you're getting and what you're selling is something that people want. That's
Yeah.
that's a huge one. And then I mean, there's like specific things that like as far as like each platform, um, because they all have their own sort of customer base and they all have so I stopped selling on basically all other platforms except for Depop,
Mm,
because I just realized that that's like where my niche is and where people seem to resonate with my style. But I still will post, if I find like some really nice name brand items, I'll post them on Poshmark because I know Poshmark has a user base, like customer base of people who appreciate name brand things. So you have to be sort of like
right.
crafty too about what you're selling. Okay, like maybe you'll sell household goods and appliances and stuff on Mercari, and you'll sell like old shoes on Poshmark. Like I don't know, it's just you can diversify and like find what works for you. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good that's a good like rule of thumb. And then I think also just making sure that you're like anytime that I've ever sourced anything that is not sort of like authentic to myself, like
Hmm.
maybe I wavered on it and I was like, I don't know, like will I be able to sell this or whatever, like I have always regretted it. I've always regretted
Mm,
it because the process that it takes to take an item from the thrift store to like being sold, it takes a lot of work. And so if you're not like, if you don't actually like it yourself, I mean, this is just for me, I don't know, everyone does things differently, but for me, like I have to be personally like a little bit invested in the thing in order for it to like feel good to sell. So just make sure
yeah.
you're like staying true to yourself with what you're sourcing to. Like you don't want to end up with a bunch of inventory of stuff that you don't personally even like. It's just
Hmm.
bad vibes.
Right. Yeah. Because then you got to figure out a way to get rid of it. So you're
Yeah.
kind of perpetuating the problem.
Yeah, and I really believe in like the energy like that you're putting into something, like it translates.
Yeah.
So if you don't like actually like something, when you're like
Yeah.
writing the description and taking the pictures, it's all gonna be off, in my opinion.
Yes, yes, that makes total sense. Those are great tips. So hopefully, people who are thinking about starting a shop, then, they can consider that and
Yeah,
hopefully be successful. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So tell everyone where they can find you and your shop online.
Okay, so I am on Instagram at Sweet Honey _ Thrift Shop, and I'm posting, I post the clothes that I have for sale there, and I also post a lot of like educational, I guess, stuff about selling secondhand clothes. And I also
Hmm.
try and, share and post a lot about the sustainable impact of shopping secondhand, and selling secondhand. So that's cool. And then you can shop my Depop, which is at Sweet Honey Thrift Shop, all one word. And that's sort of where I'm doing all my sales.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Go check it out. You have some really cute things on there. So,
Yeah.
mhm. And our last question is, what does being a sustainable brown girl mean to you?
This is a hard question.
I know, right?
It is because it means so many things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it requires some deep thought, but I think, um, I gave it I gave it a lot of thought, and what it came down to for me was like being a sustainable brown girl. It means like joy, like being
Mm,
close, closer and closer to just like joy and like alignment and authenticity. Like the more sustainable that I become, the more joyous I feel. And it's not that like it's not like the process itself is not joyous all the time. Like there's actually a
mhm,
lot of really painful stuff that you have to reconcile with, and a lot that you have to like unlearn, and there's some painful realizations there for sure, and difficult, it's difficult to like change is hard, period. So there's a lot of
for
difficult
sure.
changes that need to be made. So it's not that like the whole journey is joyous, but like once when I'm like, I don't know, it's just like I feel more aligned to like both my racial identity and like the earth and being sustainable. The more that I'm aligned to those two things, the happier I feel, and the just like more you know, grounded and yeah, happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get that. Like the more that you care about your impact on the planet, sometimes like the closer you can feel to the planet, and that kind of gives you joy. So
Yeah,
yeah.
totally. And like that's, I think it's definitely a sustainable lifestyle is a lot. I think it's sort of it's the way that we were intended to live,
For sure.
I think.
Yes.
And so the more you're just like closer to the source and closer to like, like less distraction. I
Mm-hmm.
used to consume so much and it was really like a distraction from
Mm.
other things that I wasn't wanting to like address, and
Yes.
now I barely want anything. Like I
Yeah.
yeah, like I went shopping with my friend the other day. I mean, I just went out with her because she had to like run some errands, and I went with her. Like I never go like regular shopping, but
Mhm.
I used to absolutely love shopping. Like I used to love going to the mall, and I would just like that was amazing for me. So she had to go to some stores, and I was like, sure, I'll go. And I felt like such an alien in there. I was just like, what? Like I don't. What is this? Like I don't want any of this stuff. Like or the
You're right.
it's just
You're right.
shocking. I was like,
Yes.
wow, I don't want any of this stuff. That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's really great.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's an amazing shift once you kind of get there. And it's definitely very rewarding.
Yeah,
So
totally. I'm like, okay, I really don't want it. Nice.
exactly. Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Taylor. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
Yay. Yeah. And please go follow her on all the things and, just support Taylor however you can.
Yeah, I got some cute clothes.
Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you.
Don't leave just yet. Click here to hear from another sustainable brown girl, or click here to watch the full playlist from this season.